Helgi.
Here.
Sam Corum.
Present.
Jerry Ha.
Here.
Vidar Liram.
Here.
Sarah Stevenson. Here.
Wonderful. Next is approval of the agenda. You've got the agenda in front of you, gentlemen, or folks. I've got one addition to the agenda. Under new business, item number 2 will be a discussion about updating the tree planting choices that we have.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other additions or changes or questions about the agenda?
No. I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have an extra copy?
Yes.
John, I also wanted to talk about maybe in the new business, giving direction to the public about what trees they can cut, especially if their property bounds by these mechanical alleys, and how to go about. We need to have some publication about that.
Okay,
So
I think-
we can discuss.
I think we need to bring that up under new business, Sam.
A new business, that's right.
New business?
Yeah.
Okay. Remind me when we get there, just to be sure.
Yes.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. At this time, we'll have citizen public comment. I think we have at least one.
Yeah, please. Hi, Doug Parks, 724 Harbor Drive. Only question I have is, does the tree commission or the city, I haven't been able to find one online, have a definition of a dead, dying, removable tree? Is it like 25% dead, 50% dead, 75% dead? And it's strictly personal.
Yeah.
There are some trees between myself and the beach that are dying. And especially if you get underneath them and look up, there are a lot of dead branches. And so I just didn't know if that decision has been made, that if it's 50% dead, well, maybe the city will remove it or not. Or if it's just, it's got to be completely dead and lifeless. So that was really my only question.
Doug,
Good question.
Is it on the city property?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Doug, if I could, guys, would it be all right? And then we'll, if you got anything to add. What we're responsible for is for maintenance of trees that are in the public property. And the first thing we look at, is it going to cause a safety hazard?
Okay.
Okay, so for example, does it have limbs that, could fall off and create, harm somebody's property or a car or something along those lines? The other thing is, does it need to be trimmed because it's obstructing view on a highway, on a street? When we look at these trees, and the people that are looking at the trees to determine whether we're going to remove them or trim them, are sitting in front of you.
Okay.
Okay, we're the ones that do that. We are fortunate in the fact that we have a registered arborist, Josh Shields. Josh is a PhD in urban forestry that works for the Conservation District. And so we got a question. For example, I have a tree on just out front of my yard that's on city property that is dying.
Sure.
And I went to Josh, I said, I'd hate to remove it because it's only the top that's dying.
Yeah.
And he says, John, I'm sorry to tell you, it's going to do nothing but get worse. It's got a fungus and it's dying. So if either any of us are unsure, talk to Josh.
Okay.
And he can help us make that decision. But it all starts with citizens like yourself letting us know the trees that you're concerned about.
Okay.
So we have under the web page for the tree commission, there's a trim or removal request form that you can fill out. It can be done online.
Okay.
And then sent, Katie is our secretary, she gets it, and then we assign that out to one of us we'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a percentage that, if it's 25%, is it worth bothering you? If it's 75%, it's like, yeah, we'll drive by and say, go ahead. If there was a number, or if it's more, as the Supreme Court said many years ago, trying to define pornography. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. So
we honestly, I don't hope I'm not speaking for if you guys want to say something now, I call on Josh.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Might I
Tyler.
add to Josh's entire role is public sector forester to visit with landowners for anything forestry related, tree related. So as far as if it lightens the load of the tree commission, you could have a, you know, a procedure in place that they contact the conservation district. Josh can go out, he is TRAC certified, so that's tree risk assessment qualification, and he can give you the actual risk associated with a person's tree, and then have them come to the commission to say, can it be removed, can I do anything about this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's all I wanted, thanks.
Doug, here's a copy, a paper copy of that trim request too, just a blank one if you want it. Thank you very much, Doug.
And Josh is, Josh
Josh Shields.
Shields.
He works for the same guys that Tyler does.
Okay, good to know.
And he knows his business quite well.
Good, I have a couple of at-risk trees I need to have assessed. That's-
I mean, that's really the best thing we should do. Right, guys? Am I
Yes.
You're right, correct.
what I said? And so, okay. Okay, next thing is our unfinished business. Sam, I was asking if you could give us a quick update on the tree inventory process.
Yeah, it's slow, it's going. I was not able to get my 20, I got 13, you know, but I was out of commission a little bit. So we're looking to, as everyone knows here, and if you're not, we're working with the city, and they have a geographic information system that they use to identify everything that's substructure, you know, plumbing and you know, all that stuff. And we have piggybacked onto their particular GIS, and we're able to go out and we go ahead and take pictures of trees and evaluate the trees in a drop-down menu. So our goal is to evaluate all of the trees and the city trees in Manistee. That way we can go ahead and look at trees that have some disease, and we can find out where that disease is moving to very easily once we get this completed. So I have kids that will help. I go out and I use high school kids, usually National Honor Society students, or I use anyone that would like to, you know, be involved with that. And I've talked to a number of people and they say, God, my kids would love to do that. Well, they're just not old enough, you know, so I'm looking at high school age kids and beyond, and I've talked to various groups. So mostly I do it. And in the fall, I will have NHS at the high school. They'll work with me because I've already contacted them. It's a fun project to work on. It really is. And I enjoy it. So.
Sam, I apologize to you. I didn't do any this month because I lost the app connection, and so would you please
I will.
email all of us,
I will.
you know, how do we get on?
Very easy
I know
to.
it is.
Sarah, you've got it too.
Yeah, but I didn't call you to go out, I had my own scheduling and illness struggles.
Yeah, well,
But let's do that in September.
Yeah, we will.
Well, and
I'll continue. I'll get out every day.
I mean, I'm
You.
out walking almost every day.
I know you walk.
Yeah, and I really felt bad because it's not on my phone anymore, and I don't know what I did with it. So send us that so that'll just be a reminder.
Okay.
And that's great. Did you have a chance, and again, with as sick as you were for the last month, the garden club you were gonna talk to, have you had a?
I did not, well, I did talk with them. And I got the feeling with the garden club that this was not something that they wanted to go ahead and get involved with. That's just the feeling I got when I talked with them. Who did I talk with? Let me see, my notes. No.
This is something we could have Glenn
Who?
Glenn.
Oh, yeah. And then, yeah, I've got another one, sorry.
Yeah, Beth Markowski. So I had talked with her, And I'd actually gone out with her, and then she brought it back to her group. And she said that they've got older people that are involved with the garden club. And they weren't receptive to that. So anyway,
Okay. That's good. There's another group, organization that's just starting up in the county. It's Manistee Environmental Action
yeah,
Collaboration.
Yeah.
Josh Schwensen is heading that
yes,
up.
yes.
They meet on the third Wednesday, which
Right.
would be next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, it's 7 o'clock.
I'd
Right.
say that'd be a great group to talk to.
Yeah,
And then, you're mentioning the Great Lakes Environmental Festival that both Sarah and I are involved with. Only challenge there is Sarah is, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
one more thing on our plate that
Yeah.
we can't
Right.
handle.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're not a volunteer, we're a volunteer group to put that festival on.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things I keep talking to Ziggy about. Ziggy,
narrow the scope.
he wants to do everything,
Yeah.
and I said, no, we gotta put on a good festival, that's,
Yeah, I hear you.
right.
so,
Well, I'll get to the high school. I'll talk with them, and I always get kids
yeah.
from there for.
The high school, but I think this environmental action group.
I've talked to Josh.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it'd be a great thing for them, and I think it's great publicity for them. It's a great promotion thing for them.
Yeah, I've got them. I've talked with them. I've emailed them. We've talked back and forth, but it's on Wednesdays.
Okay? Well, that's golf, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's hard for you.
Yeah,
I could go, but just not next week, but I can go to next month's.
Yeah.
meeting.
Well, Sam may be able to too, in September, I don't know, when we're gonna stop for golf league.
yeah,
Challenge
But-
you have when you get people that are involved in everything.
right.
So,
Yeah, it takes, the kids are really the best.
well,
They're pretty,
again, it's wonderful. Then the other thing we need to talk to the Boy Scout troop.
oh, yeah, I've got it here.
We gotta talk to
And I
them.
have it.
And
It's 167 at the Elks.
at the Elks, and they should always be looking for community service.
Yes, that is one.
Just like the National Honor Society is looking for hours.
Yes, community hours. Yeah, you're
My
exactly
memories
right.
Of being a Boy Scout is you had to have so many hours of
Yes.
service before you get the next
That's right.
rank. So it's a good thing for them to be looking at.
Okay.
Anything else, anybody, for Sam?
Well, if you're gonna talk to the Boy Scouts, might as well talk to the Girl Scouts.
Well, that's true too. If there's a Girl Scout troop here, I'm not sure there's one here in Manistee. I know there was a great contingent at the Onekama parade last week. Young ladies, yeah.
Oh,
So,
I'll check and see.
yeah. But you know,
Um,
Scouts, it's now Scouts, it's not Boy Scouts, it's Scouts.
Yeah.
oh,
Just go.
All right, anything else then? Very good. Well, first thing on our new business agenda is, Vitor, can you bring us up to speed on what we've got in front of us here? This picture, I assume, is for the,
That's for the next second point.
okay,
On point one here, we agreed last time that we would work with the Conservation District.
yep,
So I've met with Tyler Dula, and he is working on the application. So Tyler, would you maybe
Yeah, I can
give us an update on where you are on that?
I have some parts of the application, basically just put together the overview of the grant project for you. And then on page 2 and 3 are some parts of the operating and maintenance and community engagement strategies that I want to go through. So if you're not completely up to speed, the overview should give you a pretty good idea of what we're going for. But this is a urban and community forestry grant. Sorry, do you want one of these?
Sure. If you have an extra one, thanks.
So this is an urban and community forestry grant through the DNR with Inflation Reduction Act funding. It is focused on disadvantaged areas, so that is the priority for the grant funds. What they did is develop a tool by combining a whole bunch of other disadvantaged tools. So it is realistically one of the most inclusive tools for having something that constitutes as a disadvantaged area. Basically everything north of the channel in Manistee falls under that disadvantaged area, and then there are some small subsets south of the channel that are considered disadvantaged. Their priority for this grant is to focus any tree planting activities with grant dollars in those disadvantaged areas. The part that you can extend out beyond the disadvantaged areas is for inventories. So you guys have been working on an inventory. This grant would be a 3-phase grant where the services would be contracted out. The inventory would take place first to identify hazard trees that you are already inventorying using a TRAC system, so tree risk assessment system, by a certified arborist and someone that's qualified to do it. That would go out for bid for an inventory citywide using the existing ArcGIS database that you have. So we would include that in the RFP, that they would have access to the field maps. They go through and do the inventory. Everything gets entered into the database for you to use in future years.
And and if I'm interrupting, just say shut up and.
No, that's fine.
So it sounds like if we contract this out, and the money is in the grant to pay for that,
Yep.
that really they could complete our inventory process inside of that 3-year period that we're looking at ourselves. So
Yep.
that's a real advantage, I think.
Definitely.
The plan would be to complete the inventory within a year.
Oh, boy.
So year 2 would then be, once you have that inventory done, they would be going through and prioritizing hazard trees. So with a TRAC inventory, you have high, medium, low priority. And that is heavily focused on danger to people or structures. So they would identify whether a tree needs to be removed, considered high priority. Medium priority is, hey, there's some limb dieback here, this needs to be pruned. That all would be included in the inventory, and while they're doing it, it would also be an inventory of the plantable areas within the city of Manistee. So you would have 2 phases of the inventory, essentially: tree inventory, existing tree inventory, and plantable space. We could include certain components in there like soil characteristics. It depends on how far you can go. And I've talked to a few ISA certified arborists about giving me some ballpark numbers on what this would cost to have somebody do this. One of the people that I reached out to is the urban and community forestry experts, I guess, for the Midwest. They're based out of Indiana or Illinois, I can't remember which, but they assisted with the Rogers City inventory, and they are GIS whizzes. So anything that the city would need help with to set up the database, they could also assist. Every single person on their team is TRAC certified, so they are likely going to be on the high end of people to do it, but they could do anything that you wanted. I also reached out to Daniel Schillinger. He is a local ISA certified forester out of the Traverse City area, and he is more of the one-man crew, like do it himself with maybe some help. So I'll have 2 numbers for estimates to put into the budget. So that is for the inventory. Once I figure out that line item, then I'll be focusing on phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 will be removal and maintenance. So this would also be contracted services that are there's grant funds for. This component has to take place within the disadvantaged areas. So phase 2 would be primarily focused within the disadvantaged areas based on the priority from the inventory. Any trees removed, the stump also needs to be removed as a component of the grant. And then phase 3 would be a replanting, contracted out. Every tree that is removed needs to be replanted 2 to 1. So the idea for the planting aspect of it, to kind of spruce up the grant application, I would like to go with all native trees. And I already have sent letters of support out to some other groups. I received one back from Go Beyond Beauty, so they are an organization out of Traverse City. They started a Go Beyond Beauty program, which started as a nursery program for nurseries to stop selling highly invasive ornamental plants. If a nursery accepted that, they would get a Go Beyond Beauty certification. They would replace those high priority invasives with natives or some other species. So there's a list that restricts certain tree species. I would like to make sure that the city does not plant anything that's on that list. And what I would hopefully work towards, and I'm still working on Shelley at Go Beyond Beauty on this, is after the nursery program came out, they came out with a homeowner program because owners wanted to say, well, I don't plant any of these. I want to be Go Beyond Beauty certified for my property. And theoretically, I think if we could get this through in a grant, get the tree commission on board, get the city on board, as long as you don't plant any of those high priority invasives moving forward, maybe we can work on Go Beyond Beauty to have a city verification or a certification saying Manistee is the first Go Beyond Beauty certified city in the state of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So that would be something that I'd work for with her. You guys still would be technically, just whether or not she has the capacity to create a certification program. This started as a regional program and the state liked it so much they're now launching it as a statewide program. So whether she has the time or not, that would be, kind of cherry on top to the grant application. So the part 1, 2, and 3, inventory, removal, trimming, planting, is all funded under the grant funds. The maximum grant award is $225,000. I have a feeling that we will be somewhere close to that 200,000 area. What we really need to focus on, that I need the tree commission's assistance with, is the community aspect of this grant. So it is community driven, community forest. They want the community to be involved in this project, which is a little difficult when we contract everything out. Realistically, my thought process is we could come back to the community for the maintenance and care of planted trees. You, I assume, have some sort of budget for tree planting each year. You do your cost share program. You're gonna plant a bunch of trees through this program, and maybe there's another use for those funds, like tree maintenance, that is sorely needed outside of those disadvantaged areas, as well as when trees are freshly planted, they've been in the ground 2 to 3 years. That is the ideal time to start pruning for codominant stems to avoid hazard trees in the future when it's easy. So page 2 and 3 of this is kind of some ideas that I'm throwing out for community engagement strategies, and this is where I think the tree commission could help, volunteers could help. So one of the things that I know that we could do as a conservation district is some tree care and maintenance workshops, both for maybe the community members. So something, we get some groups that are interested in this program, they want to assist. We could do a training on how to prune trees, how to care for trees, things like that, as well as a workshop for you guys, Department of Public Works, whoever is actually going to be on the ground doing maintenance on trees after this grant is done. So that's a real easy one. We can do some workshops. This public planning meetings, I didn't know if it was something that you guys felt was necessary. You are the tree commission, you are members of the public. This just helps tie it more to the community. So you could have a second group that would be an advocacy group for this project. Someone from the tree commission sits on that, sits into those meetings, and it's just more focused on the grant project rather than all of the things that you do within the tree.
Would you recommend doing something, I can see doing that if we are awarded the grant.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for example, we take that community, the neighborhoods north of the channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is where, most of this grant money is gonna have to go, right? At that time, I would say, yes, an advisory group would be really good.
Yeah.
But prior to that, the problem might be, oh, we didn't get the grant, why are we wasting our time?
Yeah, and this would be the community engagement aspect of this grant. It would be written into the grant. There wouldn't be hard deliverables tied to it, but it's more of, we're writing in the grant that this is a plan.
Right.
So this would be looking at towards the tail end of the actual implementation. So year
Sure.
3, trees are going in. We've, had this in the media. We've discussed it. The city has announced this grant award that they've received. We've generated interest, and now we start pulling people together for that
Right.
care
I
aspect.
think it's a great idea. I can't imagine us doing something like this without a neighborhood group. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Ideally, once we have the grant and we have a plan for where we want to plant, ideally we should inform each homeowner that is having trees planted
Yeah.
in front of there, so that we can promote, homeowners buy-in to the project, maybe adopt the trees, whatever you call it, but so that they start to invest in the project.
to help, of course, with watering and maintenance.
Yeah.
Right.
And this all comes in, the workshop and, those kind of things too.
Yep.
People understand that we're gonna dig a hole, we're gonna put a tree in front of your house. But now we need you to make sure that water bag that's gonna be with it is filled, at least for the first 2 to 3 years, as that tree takes root.
Yep.
But to have that in the grant plan, I think is very good. I just want to make sure that we're not being required to do this before we hear about the grant.
No, this would be further down the line.
Great, perfect.
And so to kind of elaborate on that, that was an advisory board, but I also threw in here volunteer and citizen science programs. So
I saw it.
citizen tree monitoring, so developing a program of residents who can volunteer to monitor the trees, report issues. So using the existing database that you can have, that worked into the data set where you can have a drop-down box. Whether you can get everybody up to speed to utilize that, that's probably gonna be the largest hurdle.
Yeah.
Well, right now, for example, we have the trim request
Yeah,
out there.
Right.
And that's part of this whole thing, is that the citizen, the homeowner, tree in front of their house on public land says,
We got a problem, yeah.
yeah.
yep, and that's something too, like if you go with, the arborist that was on the high end of gonna help you
Right.
set up your database, he can help you to take those paper copies and enter them in, so you are at least storing all of your data in the same place. Make it a simple process.
Right.
Where somebody, if they did submit a paper form, and that's, part of this grant too, to target disadvantaged areas, we don't want to exclude anyone because they may not have access to a computer or know how to utilize the software. So having that paper option is still great, but it's a good idea as the tree commission to make sure that all that data is getting put somewhere.
And right now, it goes on her desk.
Yep.
And you keep it, do we have electronic copies, or do you have all paper copies?
Paper copies.
Pardon?
Paper copies.
Paper copies in a file somewhere? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what we should be looking at there is taking that and then updating what we've got for the inventory,
Yeah.
going forward. I mean, it'd be ridiculous to ask you to enter all that stuff on top of everything else you do. But it's a great plan, so,
I've got a question.
yes.
Got a question. You're talking about disadvantaged areas. I've
Yeah.
seen that in some of the other paperwork that ours given to us and everything else. How do you define that, or what do you mean by that?
So for this grant, they took 5 different tools that were put out to determine it. Basically, if you were in any one of those 5 tools, you qualified. The most common approach is looking at census data for a particular census tract. If you are meeting 3 of 12 things, you're considered disadvantaged. So it could be age of the population, so if you're majority elderly, low income, race. I think one of the big ones for Manistee is lack of transportation or multimodal transportation system. So that counts as one. Obviously, it's an aging population in Manistee County, so I think age is another. And then income is probably the third one that qualifies you. And they're going to look at those tracts. If it's a majority of that tract becomes disadvantaged. And looking at the maps, you will find errors, I guarantee you. So the entire northern side of the channel is considered disadvantaged all the way to the lakeshore and up past Orchard Beach. There are parts within the city that are not considered disadvantaged, and I contacted because Vidar sent me, I think, a question from Jeff McCula about, or maybe it was from you guys, kind of arguing those boundaries. And the answer I got was it is a hard line, except when you can show that it will have a benefit to the entire community. So one good example, you guys keep bringing up Morton Park. That is kitty corner from the corner of the disadvantaged area. So it falls outside of it, but a planting could take place in Morton Park if you can justify that the people from within that disadvantaged area utilize that park. So that is kind of what you have to go on. When you get into the right-of-way trees in an area, it's a little harder to justify that that is going to impact the people in that other neighborhood.
So this risk assessment you're talking about, that is primarily gonna happen in the disadvantaged areas? Or
The
whole city?
inventory will be the entire city.
Okay,
The removal, pruning, and planting dollars can only go to disadvantaged areas.
so then outside of the disadvantaged areas, what is currently happening for tree care and so on will continue to exist like it is now?
Yep.
Outside-
Except you will have a comprehensive inventory that gives you a starting place for continuing to work in those areas.
Just out of curiosity, this risk assessment and tree inventory, you know, there's a lot of trees in town here. And I know with Josh, he came in here once upon a time and walked through what the tree risk assessment is, and it's pretty comprehensive. And I would say if a person doing that is very good, it's gonna take at least an hour per tree. And so I'm just thinking that's a lot of man hours.
When you-
doing all this.
When you go through a level 2 TREC, which is what Josh is most likely going to go through with every landowner, it's an individual tree look, and you do go through an entire sheet. And when you're doing multiple, you get a lot quicker at going through it. A forester that is doing a level 2 on a tree can probably do a level 2 in under 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So it is a little bit faster, but it is a consideration that we will want to make when we do hire a contractor to do the inventory, because there is also a level 1 TRAC. And that is from a car window, looking at a block of trees, do you see any immediate issues? And we could probably work to combine those where a level 1 is done, except when something elevates it to a level 2. Then they get out and take a closer look at an individual tree.
Level 1, level 2, is there a level 3 then or what?
There is a level 3,
So level 3 is the most intensive and the most
yes.
time consuming.
yes, and it looks at much more. So oftentimes with level 3, digging out around the tree, examining the root system to see if you have any strangulation taking place, things like that.
So the most intensive of the risk management survey would be level 2 then?
For this purpose, yes. We wouldn't be getting into level 3s. The only kind of issue there is I do want, with the inventory, all the species to be documented.
Right.
So if they're going through, they at least need to be able to be confident in every single tree species. And the focus for this, it is citywide, but it will be up to the company to determine, and us, where within the city is a focus, because we have a lot of open areas within the city limits or private property. So it will be focused on the more urban areas, you know, whether or not they're going along the golf course and looking at trees there, that kind of thing, it would be determined at a later date. So kind of going off that, one of the last things I did put in here for community feedback mechanisms, we talked about having paper copies, survey suggestion boxes. It's good to have those as a component. Another thing that if you had the right person to do the inventory, could potentially set up an interactive online map. So the world of natural resources is kind of going to these story maps or interactive online maps where the community can actually go online, they type in a URL, and they can click on every single point and see the details, what's taking place, where trees are being planted, and they can be a part of that through that access. So they'll get to see part of that taking place, and that helps to create buy-in as well. The other thing, I kind of went off your adopt a tree approach for care of trees, but a good idea would be to do like a school tree adoption program where we can get a classroom of kids that maybe is responsible for a park to monitor the trees in that area. And then something else that we could include with youth involvement is we do have a part-time K through 12 educator at the district. So if you wanted to include some youth involvement and didn't know how to do it, the conservation district could be a part of that as well. But for this grant application, I'm not including any of my salary. We would take the admin. If we wanted to include our part-time environmental educator, we'd probably have to write some salary into the grant as well. So you'd have to be okay with that if you wanted to go that direction. But that is what I've got for community engagement, for you guys to mull over. I'm gonna be, working things into the grant application. I've got the budget and this portion left to do. The application is due August 31st, so the letter of support that I sent you would be a good place to kind of outline what the Tree Commission would like to take on as community engagement. For this grant, there is no match required. So typically, if we were writing a grant and you were gonna do something, you'd assign a dollar value to the work you're gonna do and it would go in there. This is more of just a promise to do something. There's no actual match required for the grant, so you don't have to write a value into the letter of support. If the Tree Commission doesn't want to do anything related to this grant, it probably hurts the application. But you guys are not necessarily locked into anything, and obviously there will be help all along the way to help set these programs up if you went that way.
Tyler, thank you. First of all,
It's fabulous.
page 2 and 3 are wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't see anything here that we would not want to do. I'm open for discussion right now with everybody at this table. I mean,
John, I have
yeah.
Well, John, there's,
Hold on. Avita's going first.
okay.
one question about the logistics or the process. Do you need to go through the director, Jeff Mikula, or the city manager, or the mayor, or the council
So
Goes out, or is it,
I'm kind of leaning on you guys. So I did send a letter of support to the mayor's office. I sent a letter of support to Jeff. I also sent a letter to the county. I will be going to the county commissioner meeting later this month to give them a rundown of the grant application. But I assume that you guys make a recommendation to particular people. If, for instance, I don't know what the process has been for tree care, if DPW is really involved, if we put trees in parks, is no one gonna manage them? That's kind of where I need your guys' direction on how we word the responsibilities of these groups. If we have to rely more on community engagement, then realistically, maybe we keep a shorter subset of this list and focus heavily on one or two things that are geared really towards volunteer recruitment or the enlisting schools to assist if we need help with that maintenance. The hard part is, like I said, when trees, so the trees you guys have been planting the last few years that have been in the ground 3 years by now is the time that those need additional maintenance. They need to be pruned, they need to be evaluated, and really you need an arborist training to be able to do that. And that is why if DPW is gonna take that on, or the tree commission is gonna take that on, I wanna make sure whoever is gonna get the proper training to do that.
I don't think, we're not gonna put more on the DPW, you know, on everything, okay? What they're doing right now is they're, you know, we tell them to cut a tree down, they cut a tree down. We tell them to trim a tree, they trim a tree, okay? We do the planting that's being done with new trees is being done by a contractor.
Yep.
Okay, and that's through our, you know, cost sharing plan that
Yep.
we have in place right now. And we will continue that on top of this grant. But, because I doubt they need city approval because we'll match to this. Okay, so, you know, one of the things I would like to get your feedback on is if you're not getting, like, I've got the letter of support here for you from us, if we approve it. We haven't got to that point yet in this meeting, but, you know, if you don't hear back from the city manager, if you don't hear back from Jeff, you know, let us know.
Okay, and I have not yet.
Yeah.
And that is maybe on me, if I need to reach out to them directly and kind of make sure they're up to speed. I knew Jeff occasionally attended your meetings.
Yes.
So I was hoping that he'd be here tonight to also hear. But I guess moving forward,
Yeah.
who should be the point of contact with?
Contact will continue to be Vita.
Okay, and Vidar did meet with Jeff and he brought up some concerns, but I guess I didn't know where he kind of stood at the end. And maybe he needed more information to say whether or not they're in favor of supporting this grant in any way.
I can't imagine they would not be in favor. I can't imagine one reason.
no, that's my impression, that
Okay.
the director is in favor of the grant, yes.
So, but I think it's real important, you and Vita
Yep.
talk. And Vita, if you need any help, you know, I'm available if you need,
Yep.
you know, you need to go kick somebody's ass, I'll be happy to do it.
One thing I was gonna ask you guys too, is I meant to send a letter of support to the Parks Commission,
Okay.
and I could not find an email for the parks anywhere.
Katie, can you
We
help?
actually have a meeting this Thursday.
Okay,
So
Thursday. Let me,
if you have the letter or send it to me, I can bring it to the meeting and pass it out or email
Prior
it.
to the meeting, it should go whoever the chair of that, the Parks Commission. is.
Right,
There's a new chair, isn't it?
yes, Karen.
So,
I won't be able to attend well, I have a 7 PM meeting with the Bear Lake Improvement Board Thursday.
Okay, I'll give you my email address.
No, I think, I think everything I see on here we should be doing. These are good things that, as a tree commission, we should be doing in the future. And so I don't have any problem with you listing, if this makes a stronger grant request, let's go for it, and we'll follow through.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
Not right now. I don't want to give you guys too much. I might have already overwhelmed you,
No,
so.
This is so important. The opportunity for us to get $200,000 plus grant is, yes, Jerry.
Okay, I'm just a little bit confused with what's the next step in all this thing.
So I need to complete the application. So for me, it will be,
You need this letter here from us or?
yep, so
John?
the letter will get submitted with the application. All the letters I get will get submitted. I need to develop the budget. So I need really a base inventory price. I can utilize your existing tree cost for the planting aspect of it. I know roughly the cost of removal of trees and pruning. So once I have the inventory, I can figure out, okay, how many trees can we afford to remove? Most likely, I don't see a ton of removal. So you're probably gonna be planting at greater than a 2-to-1. It's just figuring out how much money is available after the inventory, removal, how many trees can we actually put in. Plantable areas also become, kind of an estimate, and that's these folks that I'm getting help with, so the Urban Community Forestry and Daniel Schillinger, they're gonna give me a rough cost by doing a tree canopy estimate. What that doesn't necessarily take into account is overhead utility lines. So I digitized myself the disadvantaged areas, not really accounting for overhead utility lines except for the main line that I had layers for. And I came out somewhere around 650 trees or plantable areas for trees, roughly a 30-foot spacing, which exceeds the 225,000. So I think realistically you can get away with planting a lot of trees. I think that's too much. Historically, urban tree plantings and tree commissions have been very focused on tree plantings and realistically should probably be focused on tree care and maintenance, the pruning schedule, things like that to prevent future issues, hazards. So my hope is get enough trees in the ground that you guys can kind of take a back seat to tree planting and maybe allocate some of your budget towards tree maintenance and tree care.
Great idea.
Good.
For example here, Tyler, in my response, I said, we have been blessed with an abundance of mature shade trees lining our public streets, but many of these aging trees are at the end of their lifespan. We have removed over 400 trees in the past 10 years
Okay, that's great.
and have only been able to plant about 200 replacements.
Okay, that's perfect.
Our goal is to use this grant to catch up and maintain at least a 1-to-1 replacement ratio in the future. So we
Okay,
gotta catch up, and then, you mentioned 2-to-1
Yeah.
replacement. If we could get to 1-to-1,
yeah. And this, that's a great goal in the future. This grant specifically requires 2-to-1. For anything that's paid for to be removed has to be replanted at
could
2-to-1.
I change that wording then?
It might be a good idea to just stick in line with the grant requirements of
Good.
2-to-1.
All righty. Along those lines, guys, is there anything for Tyler? And then what I'd like to do is just get some feedback from you guys on this letter that I sent out to you yesterday. Anything else for Tyler?
Not for me.
No, thanks.
Tyler, this is fantastic work.
Well, hopefully we can actually get some dollars tied to
Yeah,
the plan.
this is wonderful. Okay, let's move on. The letters should be in front of you. Again, to Tyler's benefit, he
Email. What's your last name,
basically,
Tyler?
everything you see in the first 3 paragraphs is from Tyler,
Right, right.
all right?
The only
And
thing that you added in there, John, was down below there.
Yeah, that I just read.
Right.
So I'm gonna change that 1-to-1 replacement ratio to 2-to-1. Is there any other changes that we think we should make here or additions?
1-to-1 to 2-to-1.
Yeah, 2-to-1. See when I sent over there, John, already, see before?
Okay, so if I don't hear anything, I'm gonna fix that. Tyler, email this letter to you then?
Yeah, that works perfect.
Is that how it,
Yep.
so it'll be, hope I got your email address. I'm sure I got it somewhere.
I'm sure someplace.
I'll find it. All right, anything else? This, the picture that you gave us, Peter, this is the energy grant
Yes,
that you redid?
I wanted to provide an update on the
Yes,
grant.
please do.
So we submitted the application. We got a response back from reviewers that unfortunately, we were proposed to plant under a high voltage distribution line. So the requirements from the consumer energy is that we use trees that are not taller than 20 feet when they're mature. So then what I did was I discussed this with Tyler, and I also contacted the owner of Black Cap Farm, and I talked to the person who is administering the grant. Her name is Becky. I'm not sure what her last name is. And she had some recommendations. Tyler had some recommendations. The owner of Black Farm had some recommendations. So I came up with that list that is shown on the picture. There are 5 possible tree species. And the table above shows, then I have sort of randomly, in a way, placed them on the map. So the map shows the location numbers, and the table shows what tree goes in each of those
Okay.
places. So this is, I believe this is sent back. Do you know, Katie, if this is sent back, signed by Jeff and sent back?
I do not know if he did that or not.
Okay.
Would you please follow up on that? Thank you.
One question, I hope it doesn't throw a scare in there. Are these trees in compliance with this new grant we're applying for? Not being invasive,
Non, we want
non-native trees?
Just to clarify, the Go Beyond Beauty program doesn't prohibit non-native trees. It only prohibits highly invasive ornamental trees. So it's a rather small list that you have to stick to.
Okay. So like a Japanese tree lilac, that's non-invasive? Just the word Japanese on there, coming from Japan, it
It would
implies,
be non-native, it doesn't necessarily make it invasive.
okay,
It wouldn't be my first choice for a tree. Usually when you get a non-native tree, you get issues related to it. It's not acclimated to our native pests. Native trees usually are a little more resilient to issues versus non-native. But then again, there are a lot of situations where you bring a non-native tree over and nothing utilizes it either. So you might not have any issues with a non-native tree because our native pests don't utilize it. They're not going to attack it, they're not going to use it for nectar or pollen source. So you have pros and cons there. You're not necessarily benefiting our native pests, but on the landowner side, you might not have any issues with pests. So it's catch-22. The list that I gave Vidar is sticking with native. You're really looking at shrubs. There are no mature native trees less than 20 feet tall. So it does make it difficult to fit into an urban plan. And that was my other recommendation, was maybe look at an urban food source where maybe you could look at blueberry bushes, dwarf apple trees, things like that, but there's a lot of additional maintenance and care that goes into that as well. It would just be a fun community involvement thing to have a food source as an urban tree, but you run into issues with salt, different things. Obviously, a lot of times there needs to be pesticides, fertilizers applied to those. So there's not a real good solution when you're looking solely native or even the fruit stock.
When I looked at this, I thought an alternative approach would be to say we're just not going to propose any planting under the high voltage line, right? If that would kind of resolve the whole issue with the size of trees. But the reason we came up with this area of the locations was that I talked to one community member, and my impression is that she talks to other community members around, and they are really focused on that section of 8th Street. And so planting on just one side of that would be lopsided. So I went with the option of trying to find species that would meet the requirements of not being too tall. So hopefully that goes through.
Well, I mean, I hope so. You know, don't get me wrong, I love the colors and what those trees would do for the street and stuff. Don't want to get us turned around from what we're saying on one side of the coin and doing something on the other side. But these trees are very, very good. In fact, the one over here, I don't have my glasses on, but that looks like a red plum, and we've been planting some of those around the city ourselves.
So again, if you got advice from Black Cap Farms from Mr. Lamore, Matt, he's very good.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, let's just go with it. Let's get this grant in and see if we can get the money and go with this.
Yes.
I think it's fine. But that brings us to the next point on the agenda that I'd like to get done, because I'd like to be done by 6.
Okay.
We need to think about updating our selections on our Manistee Planet Tree option. And so what I'd like to do, Jerry, if you would accept the challenge here, is to, and you can use certainly the work that Peter's already done here, but I'd like to see if we could come up with maybe a max of 5,
Okay.
you know, trees that are not going to disqualify us from a grant, and that are going to do well here in Manistee and do well with all the other challenges we have here, salt on the roads and all this other good stuff, okay?
Sounds good,
So
John.
can
I
you
accept
report back
it.
to us in September? Would that be acceptable?
Right.
All right, outstanding. Everybody,
Yeah, I had a question on, like dogwoods, they don't have to, you know, the native dogwoods, couldn't we plant those in redbud?
Yeah, you can get away with, there's a variety of different dogwoods. Some are really best on richer soils. Same with redbud. If they're properly cared for, you can get them to grow here. But there's vast differences even within your species of dogwoods based on height. You have true shrub dogwoods, and then you have true tree dogwoods. Flowering dogwood is a native tree to Michigan. It's not, we're beyond the northern range of flowering dogwood. A real common one that you'll see around here is gray dogwood, which is probably going to be the best suited for a dry site. It's not the perfect site for it, but it could do well there. And redbuds, when they're, cared for, can do really well, but even, you know, red bud that you put on a rich soil is likely gonna be a nice tree. You put a red bud on poor crummy soil, sandy soil, like what we have here.
Which we have a lot of sandy soil.
You're likely gonna get a shrub, slower growing, so there's, you kinda have to balance it. And I did provide VR with a tree and shrub suitability group, so it contains a lot of trees that are within tree and shrub suitability group 7, which is, moderately well-drained sands to excessively drained sands. That's a USDA list. I disagree with some of the species on the list, but it's a good starting point. If you want to look at that, it tells you whether the tree is native, whether it's non-native, commercially available, mature height, and you know, if you look at just that tree and shrub suitability group 7, you'll get quite a few trees in the ballpark. But
It's good.
being
It's good
USDA
news.
is really not going to get into the ornamental
Okay.
cultivars.
So would it be all right, Tyler, if Jerry were to contact you and maybe just
Yep.
phone conversation or something? And
What, and I just wanted to ask, what are the consumers energy tree species? And I can tell you right away if any of them are on the go beyond BB list.
could we just take that out afterward?
Yeah.
Guys, the one thing I do want to bring up before we adjourn is I am not going to be here for the September meeting on Monday, September 9, but you will have a quorum and
I don't know, I'm not gonna be here.
you're not going to be
I'll
here?
be in New York.
Okay. And then we won't have a quorum, so two of us are missing. And I am gone through the month of September. We're in Ireland. If you wanted to have a meeting on the 16th, are you going to be here on the 16th?
We fly out on the 16th.
So you won't be.
Nope. We fly back on the 16th.
Well, I think we've got enough stuff in the hopper right now, so if we miss a meeting, we'll just pick it up next time.
Why don't we just say we won't have a meeting in September, we'll have one in October?
Right.
Okay,
We can,
Right.
our bylaws allow us to do that.
okay.
Okay?
What if we have the new members, will they be appointed by then?
God, I hope.
Well, then we would have a quorum.
Oh, for next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the.
Just keep it in mind, yeah.
I think we need to make a decision right now. Okay, so, if everybody's okay, we'll meet the second Monday of October.
So moved.
Okay?
Yes.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, meeting's adjourned.